really huge, but we're talking about, garbage bags of, uh, we served 374 kids this year,
That's
but
great.
a bunch of them were in families with multiple kids, so 200 and something bags. Some of them small bags, some of them big bags.
Well, Jenica, there's so much empty space in town. I mean, I don't know if you could, the place right across from the dollar store, which already had activities because they came and spoke to us.
The what store?
The place that's right across from the dollar store on Main Street. They used to have
the old La Femmes.
Yeah. But of course, there would be a heating issue and whatnot. I guess that would be the big thing, whether the owners or whoever there's so much space.
And we would
Bob
have
has a lot of space. And that's the first floor too. It's just, how about the parking there? Is there parking? Yeah, I think there is parking.
Yeah, there's enough parking.
But you'd have to heat it if people are going to hang around there.
Well, I think, the reason I said it, Jenica, is that I always have spaces at different times and different spaces at different times available. And I certainly can let them use it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't know that the spaces will be available for next year. I mean, that's a year away. Things are changing.
I think we would have to get it, ideally September, because then the paperwork goes out and starting in October for the families.
Yeah.
So we kind of have to get it, September for December kind of thing. But so I just wanted to throw it out there, and people can think about it, and we can discuss more later.
Okay.
That's all.
Well, that's good. That's good.
How much did you raise?
Funds wise or
Funds wise.
It was over 7,000, I think.
Great.
Wow.
Yeah, it was so much more this year than last year. So it'll be interesting to see, this coming year, hopefully without COVID issues. I'm hoping that more of those people will take care of their own presents, because we had to buy. It was probably like over 100 kids worth ourselves.
Okay, well, that's great. In fact, I'm amazed at the amount. It seemed like an awful lot from past knowledge, and that's great. I hope the kids are all appreciative of what you've done, all the work you did as well. Is there any other happy dollars or business we have to attend to? No happy dollars, guys? With all this wonderful snow and rain and
John, I hate to be a wet blanket, but we invited someone to speak. We gave them a starting time, and now we're about 8 minutes beyond that. So I think in respect for our speaker, we ought to get to our speaker.
Okay, good.
We can talk about this later.
Okay. Peter Kopp has been generous to come speak to us with short notice, having talked to him last night. And he has written a number of books and done a lot of writing for other companies. And he's written a specific book, that Dancing in the Fireflies, that I think is fun and exciting and entertaining. And I let him go on.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you very much for inviting me. It's an honor to be here today. And I will sort of begin by talking about my childhood. I grew up with a mother who was an opera singer, and a father who was always in his study writing another book. And by the time I was a teenager, he was up to about 20 or 30 of them that had been published. And one of the most exciting times that I remember when I was 10 was in 1960 when he published or had published his first book, which was Radius of Action. And I remember him in the living room getting the notice from the publisher. And it's probably one of the first times that I saw him excited, but he started laughing and dancing around the room. And so I thought, well, this is really something. This is what big people do. They write books and they dance around the room. So it was a kind of a challenge in my upbringing because I was interested in the theater. And so I have a degree in theater arts and in speech. And the ideas never seemed to stop. When my wife is British, and we came over from England to be the caretakers at Hildene for 3 years. And I went to a publisher locally and I said, what if you have a boy who has a gift? And the publisher said, write it. So I did. This is Thunder in October. This was published in 1997. And from this came a whole series of books. And I'm sitting in John Goodrich's office, and he turns to me and says, okay, this is your Dance of Your Fireflies book, which was the second in the series. Write a screenplay. So a year later, I was handing him the screenplay, and probably several months after that, we were going to New York. And in the city, we had the wonderful opportunity of meeting with an entertainment attorney. Most writers struggle to get representation of agents. And so you can imagine all these different agents with piles and piles of manuscripts on their desk. And they're trying to figure out, well, which one is going to, be the next book. And so as we were heading into New York City, we were heading towards the old Pan Am building, which is now the MetLife building on Park Avenue, and pulling into the parking area and going upstairs to meet not just an agent, but an entertainment attorney. So this is what the target is for writers, because an entertainment attorney is sort of the commander in chief over all the agents in the world. And in this particular law firm, it's the third largest law firm in the world, Greenberg and Traurig. Here we are sitting in his boardroom on the 15th floor talking to him about Dance of the Fireflies. And the opportunity was a performance because, and this is something that my dad had a difficulty doing. He would underplay and lose his enthusiasm and would be very, sort of low in terms of his presentation, not so much energy. And I said to him one day, I said, if you would just spark up what you're talking about, you probably will get the energies of this agent to give you a hand. Well, unfortunately, fortunately, he was hired to write a book called Secret Soviet Spies for US News and World Report. And it was a bestseller. Of the 32 books that he wrote, that was probably the one that sold the best. But again, he did not have the representation that you really need to have when you're going to have that kind of opportunity. So he would have been set for life just from that one book, but he settled for a fee. So imagine, finding out that you had written a book that had been, lifted up high and all kinds of sales, all kinds of publicity, and you only had $25,000. Ah, my mother would go off and sing another opera when that would happen. Because she just felt so frustrated that here she had a husband that was rather an interesting man. I mean, he was an inspiration to me right from the beginning. And so when Dance of the Fireflies was finished, I wish I had been able to write it maybe 10 or 15 years earlier, because he was gone. He'd already passed away. And then to add insult to injury, here we are in 2003, and I'm reading Radius of Action for the first time. And it's just amazing. You know, here, your father writes a book that's actually a page turner. You're going, no, I missed out on talking to him and all the questions I could have asked him about that book. But I was 10 when it was published, and I was doing other things. I was, you know, auditioning for plays and running here, running there, trying to decide what I wanted to do. And so here was this book, Radius of Action, that should have been promoted by his agent. But his agent was just busy doing other books, which is the tragedy that happens. So, okay, so we're in a situation where the book, the Dance of the Fireflies book, is actually owned by a corporation. And that's more powerful, because if you're going to sell a property, and this is what's called an intellectual property, you want to have a company behind it, because then you can charge more money for it. And John and I talked about, you know, producing movies and this and studios and that. And, you know, we just said, sell it, because it's such a complicated thing, especially in our time with the COVID-19 and everything else. The studios are having a hard time doing principal photography. So that's what we're doing. And Dance of the Fireflies is on the desk of people at Disney and people at Universal and people at Lionsgate who haven't said no yet. And it's been a couple months, which is a good sign, because usually what happens is they look at something, they look at the package and they go, no. It's more expedient for an agent to say no, or a producer to say no, or a content person to say no, because if they say yes, oh, it's expensive. It's expensive for them, because all of a sudden now they have to mount a production and they have to figure out all the thousands of people that have to be involved in it. And so for me, it's been an education. It's been an education in all different fields. And while I was in the process of writing my own series of books, there are 4 now in the Jonathan Sage series, I was interested in making other people smile. So I decided I would go ahead and see if I couldn't make other people's dreams come true as well. This is a book of postcards from Londonderry. It's an absolutely amazing book, because in it are photographs of history of different things to do with Londonderry. And George Newell and his father, unfortunately, his father was in failing health, but George, actually George was failing health, but Jeff Newell and I worked on this and got it published. And I think that someday someone will pick it up and go, where's this book been? So then with the contacts that I'd made in England, I had had the wonderful joy of meeting Robert Watts, who was the producer of Star Wars. And he called me up and said, why don't you do a book on this particular guy? Tim Dry is his name. He's a mime, and I found him to be in the Star Wars series. And he has quite an interesting story of where he's traveling all around the world, doing mimes and doing different shows. And so I met with him down in Orlando at the let's see, I guess it was the 30th anniversary of Empire Strikes Back. And there was Robert, and they're all signing autographs. And it was just an amazing event of all of the different things that were going on for Star Wars at that time. And that was, of course, before George Lucas sold it to Disney for $4 billion. Can you imagine that?
Wow.
Here's George Lucas, and he is, these are all these pictures. He is being romanced by the wonderful president of Disney, who wrote a book called The Ride of a Lifetime. Highly recommend that book. It's about his rise in his becoming the president of Disney, and trying to stay very true to capture all the things that are important to kids and adults as well. So from there, you know, we get to other people that have a story. This is Broken Bones. This is about a fellow who went through all kinds of pain and describes it, and has got a lot of advice on people that are having difficulties. This is another fellow who is kind of a lost soul. I gave him the title of Lost in Schizophrenia. This fellow spent probably 15 years working on this before it was ready. And that's something else. A book isn't just something that you dash out like an essay. The real important thing in writing is the editing of the writing, and what you do with your thoughts and your experiences in your own life as to how you want to tell your story. And invariably, the story is one of conflict. I remember my father teaching me, or trying to teach me, the opening monologue of Henry V. And it's such an amazing group of sentences. Oh, for a muse of fire that would ascend the brightest heaven of invention. A kingdom for stage, princes to act, and monarchs to behold the swelling scenes. Then should the warlike Harry, like himself, assume the port of Mars, and at his heels, leashed in like hounds, should famine, sword, and fire crouch for employment. I mean, Shakespeare really had it. I mean, it was just amazing what he could do with the English language. And so as a boy, I'm listening to these lines, and then I'm also fascinated with the life of my father, because when he was younger, he was a pilot in the Air Force, in the Army Air Corps, actually, just before it became the Air Force, over in the Middle East and in Egypt and so on. Lately have uncovered some photographs that someone captured in a amazing sale on eBay. eBay. My uncle apparently just kind of disappeared, and all of his possessions were auctioned off. And there's this scrapbook called the Shirley Temple Scrapbook that was originally formed in 1931. And in it are postcards and greeting cards and photographs and letters that are of my family. This woman in Washington State called me up and said, is your last name Kopp? And I said, yes. She said, well, do I have something for you? And she sent it to me. And I was just astounded. It's just extraordinary. And my grandmother actually my step grandmother, my original grandmother, my bloodline grandmother passed away when my father was 3, but my grandfather, Earl, remarried, and he married into a family whose last name is Claus, like Santa Claus. And this is a photograph, see if you can see it, that is of her dad and mom. And it was taken in 1897.
Hmm.
Isn't that amazing? And so as a storyteller, as someone that's wanting to champion other people that want to tell their stories, I find that there's no end to it. It just can go on and on and on. And of course, the Star Wars Mandalorian series is an example of that. I mean, you take Boba Fett, who was in one of the first 3 Star Wars films, and now he's got a series following just him. So because of the idea of learning and editing your imagination and working with your imagination, it's amazing what you can do and how you can help people who are lost, who are depressed, and who are seeking to find themselves, find the road to their way home. So I think I've spoken enough. Is there any questions?
Could you tell us, Peter, more about Dance of the Fireflies?
Right. Jonathan Sage is still living at Hildene. His parents are the caretakers there. And he's upset because he's lost contact with these 4 animals that suddenly he can hear their voice. Their lips don't move. And so it's questionable as to whether or not it's a trick of his imagination or whether he's hearing it through mental telepathy. And so it's up to the audience and the reader to discover what's really going on. We've got a little presentation here.
But I don't know. Ask if they have a screen saving.
Do you have a screensaver capacity? In other words, can I show a slide?
Screen sharing.
Screen sharing?
Yes,
I mean,
I
we've got
don't.
people here.
I don't see a screen sharing capacity.
Go down. There, screen
Okay.
share.
Okay, you're now a host.
I'm now
Oh,
host.
okay. Share screen. Okay, there we go. Oh,
Where are we?
it didn't come up.
Oh, okay, maybe we can't
Let
do
me
it this
just see
time.
that.
Oh, that's fine. Anyway, so Jonathan is upset. And so we have at the very beginning of the story, opposition to certain secrets, certain information that he's supposed to receive, and he's not getting it. And it's now 2 years into this time. And suddenly things start happening. And he's about to meet a rather interesting character who is a Fulbright scholar. He is, does that work that way?
Oh, wait a minute.
There, that's it, right?
I don't know. Can you see this?
Can you see
No.
Dance of the Fireflies?
Mm-mm.
No. Oh, that's a shame. Okay. I'm not sure why.
Well, we'll have to work on the technology.
Uh-oh.
So in the
Can't see anybody.
evening that follows his
Are you still on?
feeling, yeah, I think so. Am I still there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. In the evening of his hearing a very strange sound coming out of the lightning tree, which is sitting on the edge of the outlook at Hildene. He is awakened by his guinea pig. In the book, it's a hamster, but the hamster was recast as a guinea pig because the guinea pig makes noises, whereas a hamster doesn't make as many noises. Anyway, it's sort of more comical because it's a guinea pig, and the guinea pig manages to get out of his cage and climb down the back of the bookcase and climb over to Jonathan's bed at 12:07 in the early morning and wake him up and say, you've got a visitor. And Jonathan says, well, how could I possibly have a visitor at this hour? And so Spence, the hamster, says, I was sound asleep in my cage and suddenly something grabbed my eyelid and there was this tremendous flash. And Jonathan says, well, what are all the flashes outside the window? It's unbelievable. And it's obviously more than the moon. Well, he's about to meet Walter, who is a very inventive, very intelligent, very educated firefly, and is then carried into an adventure where he is taken into another world, which is kind of a world of purgatory. And he's on the Pullman train that Robert Todd Lincoln used to ride up to Manchester. And there's Robert Todd, who's been looking at a letter that's not finished, and he's confused. And so we go through this discovery of why Jonathan is in this train with a ghost of Robert Todd Lincoln, who is trying to figure out why he's in this sort of strange purgatory. And so in the course of all of that, we start to meet some of the characters in Thunder in October who stop the train and tell him that they need to make haste to a certain place, which turns out to be in Dorset at the horse show, where Jonathan is given more information, and so is Robert Todd, about what this most terrible thing that happened to him caused in someone else's life. I don't know if anyone knows the stories of Robert Todd Lincoln, but the custom was that it was not a good idea for someone of color to try and open Robert Todd Lincoln's carriage in the turn of the century, because Robert Todd did not like Black people. And this one particular time, actually not, I was reading a newspaper printed in 1983 that 5 times these people from Jamaica would be the doorman, and they would open the door for the carriage, just as custom as they're supposed to. And they'd be rapped on the knuckles. So in my story, William Winnipeg, who has a history of his own that comes out in the book, is a writer. And it's a devastating thing for him because Robert Todd has crushed his right hand, which is his writing hand. So as you could see from all these different things, we are looking at opposition. And the idea that we have about different plots and different subplots and different characters all seem to revolve around either a problem or something that is opposing them that won't let them succeed readily in what they attempt to do. And then there's all of the lessons of, well, okay, if everybody tried something and it was a smash hit, would we really appreciate it? And then we get into the law of familiarity. And the law of familiarity says if you've been around something too many times, you're not going to appreciate it as much as you would if it was something special. So in waking up in the morning and looking out at the sky and seeing the clouds, we have an opportunity to treasure every single day of our lives, every single second of our lives. And the purpose of Dance of the Fireflies is the discovery that Jonathan makes because he can communicate. And when he discovers that inside Equinox Mountain up the way is an enormous civilization of fireflies who understand the weather. And they understand the weather, but they can't communicate what they understand to anyone but Jonathan, because Jonathan is the doorkeeper to the rest of the world. So in the various books in the series, there's opposition to his getting closer to the truth on how the weather can be controlled. But let's see, the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th and 10th book are in a planning stage, but I've already written the last couple of paragraphs of the last book. And it's extraordinary when you kind of do that, because as an actor on the stage, you are learning lines that you will need at certain times. And what is exciting, at least for me as on the stage, is the spontaneity. It is the idea that, okay, we are on the stage, there's an audience, and we can actually sense how they're responding, whether they're restless, whether they're laughing, whether they're not with you, or whether they're with you 100% and tears are rolling down their cheeks. And that is the real exciting part. Can you put me back so I can see people? I can't see anybody, including myself.
I have no idea.
So, as you can tell, I have spent a little bit of time in my 71 years of life discovering different things. Is everyone still there?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, great. So, questions?
I don't know how to do that. Can you ask?
We can't
Yeah,
get
I was
the,
curious if your screenplay gets accepted
Right.
by something, how does that work in terms of your authorship at that point? Like, are then, because they buy it, can they just kind of however they want, or are you still involved in that process?
Okay. The answer to your question is depends on the situation with the entertainment attorney. And that's why you want to have someone powerful like that, because he's done contracts for Warren Beatty and for Madonna and all host of producers and so on. So he's got 30 years of experience. So it's really quite remarkable that John and I have been able to find him and that he's interested in doing this. And it wasn't just something where, we said, okay, let's do it, because, we were thinking, well, gosh, here's the pandemic, the production companies are going to be shut. And Paul's response was that the longer he has in this mode, the more time these different content people would have to look at it. So it's a good thing that they haven't said no, but yes, to answer your question, in a contract, they could, do whatever they wanted with it. If they said, okay, we need more help with this. I mean, we understand you have over 100 different inventions and games and things that are associated with Dance of the Fireflies. They would probably say, we want you on board. And what would be really lovely if it all turns out as we hope to be in the time when the principal photography was going on, and the director would turn to me and says, "What do you think about that?" And I would have an opportunity to say, that's fine, but what if we look at it this way? I had the amazing experience of working on a screenplay in England with Norman Reynolds, who was the Academy Award-winning art director of Star Wars. He's the one that invented the ball that chases after Harrison Ford. And then also he was involved with creating C-3PO and a whole host of other things. And so we were working together on screenplay, and it was like, well, I have this idea. What about this? Well, yeah, I have that. That's good. That's good. But what about this? And then it goes, well, what about that? And so there's this incredible energy in the room, amazing energy, where you're creating some things that are exciting to you. Are we lost? John, are you there?
Yeah, we're all here. Can't
Okay,
you
your
see
phone's
us?
doing it. Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. Anyway, so
Can you see us?
I can't see you. How do I get back to you? I'm in sort of a Zoom phone expanding your reach, but I can't see where you are. Wait a minute. Let me see here.
Video.
Video.
Ron, what does he do? Jim?
Into the Fireflies press.
Up at the top. Did you push the top?
Okay. Post attendee Zoom. No.
Maybe if you switch it back to host, me to host, I don't know if that does anything.
All right. Sorry about that. We were trying to show you some pictures, but that no. Are you still there?
Yeah.
Yes, we're all here.
We're
We
here.
can see you.
Oh, you can see me. Oh, well, that's fine then. If you can see me, that's fine. So the exciting thing is that someone can see the spirit, the soul of a piece. And if something is deep, as Dance of the Fireflies is, you get to the end of it and you go, well, wait a minute, this is not the whole story. That there is another story, and that's called Christmas Silhouette. And Christmas Silhouette is really a book that shows more opposition to what Jonathan is trying to do, but it introduces a lot more characters that are needed in the next book, which is Time Thief. And then the book that I've been working on now for about 2 years is called Splintering Clouds. My dad, also being a pilot, was into weather modification. He was in Iran when the Shah of Iran was there, and his company, Weather Engineering Corporation of America in Washington, D.C., was hired to make rain. This was before the poison rain and the rain they used in Vietnam to do bad stuff. And so I had an opportunity to see some of the footage of films that were made of a DC-3, modified DC-3, taking off and flying up to a certain altitude and then launching out silver iodide into the clouds, which wasn't harming anything. It was just causing ice crystals to form and it to rain. So in the process that they had their contract there, they doubled the annual rainfall. And plants were growing all over the place. I mean, it was extraordinary. So in thinking about that, I'm thinking about what is the most vulnerable part of this planet. And obviously, one thing is the weather. The way that a hurricane can come in and rip out a whole city, a tornado can tear up a whole area. What if it's possible to control those elements? Now, of course, that sounds absolutely preposterous. I mean, how are you going to control things that with that much space? But you want to know something funny? When
the astronauts were up on the moon, and I don't know if you saw Apollo 11, and Tom Hanks has got his thumb and he's covering the Earth with his thumb. It suddenly occurred to me, it's a question of scale. So that if a huge, gigantic problem is reduced to a small problem, what sort of inventions and technology could fall into place that would make changes? So I'll leave that with you to think about. But it's
Thank
been
you.
great speaking with you. Any other questions?
Does he have to, Jim, does he have to get back to host? Do you have to get back to the host?
If we don't have any other business, we can just close things out. It wouldn't matter.
Okay, can you hear us?
I can hear
Peter?
you. Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. All right, well, then we can, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Wonderful.
Anybody that would like a copy of the Dance of the Fireflies,
Mhm.
they certainly could come to me and ask me.
Sure.
And it's fun reading, interesting. It's a fascinating concept to think of the imagination involved in that, in the creation of it. So thank you very much, Peter. And we can close out for the day if everybody's ready. Is there anything else we need to talk about?
Thank you very much for this great speaker.
Thank you.
Yeah. Alice, could I have a word with you?
Pardon me?
I say I just would like a word with you when we close out.
Okay, I'll wait.
Okay,
Okay.
goodbye.
Well, thank you very
Peace.
much.
Thank you very much. It was just a great talk.